This one's from Nick. There seems to be a lot of new home builder ads on social media. I'm getting them too, unfortunately. Are we at risk of an oversupply issue in the future? So, I guess to your question there, Nick, definitely not. They're quite good at the in getting into your algorithm though. But and this is a slide of actually in full credit to Propertyology and SQM and ABS's data here. But here, what we're looking at in this graph is essentially from January 2010. So we're looking at essentially nearly 15 years of data. We've got the blue line here being population growth. We can see the country has gone up around about 6 million or so in population over that period of time. So it's a sizable increase in population. The green here is essentially rental supply. And we went through that GFC correction in that kind of 2010, 2011 period. And rentals, there was a bit of an oversupply on building in that point. And this back here is where we saw vacancy rates around that kind of up to 4% around the country. So higher vacancy rates, you'll then start to see more rental supply ads coming through, right? But what's happened since then, there's been a significant decrease, and this trend line is quite frankly concerning because there's a few reasons because of that. I think the big one, if we go through the list here, you've had changes in government policy. You've had changes in APRA lending laws as well. So it's made it harder. People are quite restricted on their borrowing, let alone the fact that interest rates are higher, which that also impacts your borrowing. Depreciation changes, legislation changes in terms of landlords now are expected to supply a lot more. You got land tax issues as well. Higher stamp duty. A lot of the stamp duty concessions is quite heavily weighted towards new builds. And then there's premiums charged on council rates. Some of those council rates are getting quite expensive. So, I mean, in general, investors are chasing a return. And if they don't feel like they're getting a return from a certain asset class, they're not going to be piling into it. Now, I think at a level beneath that as well is we have a huge undersupply of employment, particularly in the construction industry. We don't have that problem in the high density, high rise buildings. That's definitely something where we're not undersupplied. But I mean, back when I was in school and probably the generation before me, the kids who may not have finished high school or further education wasn't for them. They typically speaking, they'd leave school and they'd go to a trade, and you'd see plumbers, carpenters, electricians. There are far less kids if you speak to any builder or tradie today. There are far less apprentices coming through, and that's leading to a serious undersupply in employment. So to me, it's no surprise that new dwelling supply is also going to take a bit of a backseat. So I guess to your question again, Nick, so I don't think that oversupply is an issue. You're probably just getting a lot of ads, but there's nowhere near enough homes being built. So it's definitely not something that you need to be wary of. I mean, there will always be saturated pockets where you might need to keep an eye on. There was a news article, I think it was early in the week this week or last week, where about a third of apartments in certain LGAs in Melbourne have actually lost money in the last 5 years. So if you're doing high density buildings like places like South Bank, Melbourne, Port Melbourne, Paran, South Yarra, Maribyrnong, like those cities are absolutely saturated with cookie cutter apartments. But if we're talking about residential homes, we're at an undersupply issue, particularly as population growth is still booming. And it's going to continue to boom because that, unfortunately, is the band-aid solution we have to increasing our GDP as a country. Though our GDP per person is tracking down, we just keep bringing more people in. We can tax them, keep the GDP number up, but per person it's actually lower, which is a little bit concerning.